Day number 2 of the Blast Fall Finals has come and passed. Today we concluded the last of our group stage play, deciding who was going to be skipping to the semifinals on Saturday, who would be our quarterfinal matchups on Friday, and of course who would be the two teams heading home first today. Leading off, we had the Falcons taking on Faze Clan, followed by NAVI taking on G2, and then Astralis taking on Team Spirit, and we rounded out the day with Vitality taking on Team Liquid. There is so much to get into, as we are not only on the eve of the 1-year anniversary for CS2, but also, of course, we are on the eve of the playoffs. So let's go ahead and get started by first having you guys take a second and leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, and I thank you for doing it. Also, make sure you follow me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2, linked in the description. Thank you for doing that. And without any further ado, let's talk about this first game. So, Falcons versus Faze Clan was definitely an interesting place to start, as this was an elimination game. And with how up and down Faze Clan has been as of late, I was definitely worried going into it. Falcons are by no means a super strong roster, and obviously not one that I traditionally rate very highly, but Faze have been giving up losses to pretty much everybody, so I knew that Falcons could definitely be a threat here. And credit to them, I think this was probably one of the better Falcons series I've seen from them in quite a while. They kept things close on Nuke and nearly could have won it, but Faze etched it out 13-11. They ended up winning the triple overtime affair on Ancient 22-20, and it was only on Dust 2 where they finally seemed to run out of steam, with Faze taking that game handily 13-6. But obviously, if they just won 2 more rounds on Nuke, they would have 2-0'd Faze, and we would be talking about a very different series. Obviously, we'll talk about it more once we get there, but a big shout out has to go to Madden here. He's not someone you typically expect to step up for the Falcons, but he was amazing on Ancient and very good throughout this series. Unfortunately for him and the rest of his teammates, Brokey on the other side was not just amazing, he was transcendent through all 3 games. Brokey ends this series with 80 kills, a 1.43 rating, and 90 ADR. Just an insane performance from him, and that is something that we haven't been able to say for a while. Brokey has been one of the most inconsistent parts of Faze for the last couple of months, and seeing him step up like this was really dope, because when his playstyle works and he's being super aggressive with the AWP and the rifle, he is a joy to watch, and it makes Faze so much more dynamic. They've been missing this kind of impact from Brokey sorely, and he stepped up in a big way to get Faze through this series. And we saw a lot of that impact right away on Nuke, as Faze jumped out to an early 8-1 lead. All of Brokey, Frozen, Robs were taking turns as Falcons kept running into the meat grinder. This map ended up feeling a lot like an old school Nuke kind of experience, where both teams were very dominant on their CT side and neither team could get much going on the T side. The CT side lockdown was just too much to overcome. So Faze definitely dominated the first half, and despite winning the T side pistol round plus the 2 rounds after, jumping out to an 11 scoreline right away, they weren't able to stop the Falcons going on a run of their own, winning the next 7 of 8 rounds, only conceding 1 in the middle, allowing Faze to reach match point early. Despite that, Falcons battled this all the way back to an 11-11 scoreline, and honestly this game could have and probably should have went to overtime, because on the very last round of regulation, the Falcons play a very aggressive round, contesting straight into Hut right away, and they get a lot of picks. They tear Faze apart. The only thing they didn't calculate was Brokey dropping in from T-Roof on the ladder and getting a triple kill out of nowhere. If Brokey even gets just 2 kills and traded out, they probably win this round. Instead, Brokey cleans up all 3 to equalize the advantage. Magisk is too low of health, so he has to back off. Frozen gets a pick on Sun Pius, and suddenly Magisk is left in an unwinnable 1v2 situation. If just a little bit went their way, we're talking overtime. But hey, I guess that's fair enough, because we got more than enough overtime when we head over to Ancient. Now, we already talked a little bit about Madden going absolutely crazy on this map, but honestly, him going for nearly 40 through 3 overtimes is pretty remarkable, because he's just not usually the guy to carry like that. And he's doing it while playing one of the most unforgiving positions on the map. That B anchor role is just not fun to play, because a lot of teams in the pro scene will stick their in-game leader, aka their worst statistical player, into caves. So oftentimes, if you're the B anchor, you are staring down the barrel of the entirety of the T attack, and you either have to multi-kill or die. And this was just one of those maps where Madden chose the first option more often than not. He was sick throughout. On the other side of the coin, Brokey continued his run of dominance, just looking absolutely insane on this map as well. When Brokey is locked in, his opping style is so aggressive, so in tune that it just looks so fun to watch, man. He's definitely feast or famine, and lately it's been a lot more famine than feast, but when he's taking those aggressive peaks, he's getting multi-kills, picking up the rifle for the third after. He was dismantling the Falcons all over this series, especially on the B site here, and he capped it off with this insane 4K clutch in the triple overtime, working from a 1v4 position as Majis picks up the final pick on Frozen. He's playing super aggressive in the B cage for the intel. He gets the first shot on Snappy. The bomb is rotating into the B site. He's kind of pinned in. He has to take the gunfights. They smoke out Cave so Senpais can get the bomb out. He pushes through the smoke to kill Senpais unawares as the bomb goes down, but now it gets trickier, right? He's in the 1v2. Magisk is flanking through CT. He takes the bait shot into the smoke to make Magisk run a little bit faster, then turns around towards CT and guns him down, putting him in the 1v1. Picks up the AK, no fear, no hesitation. He has the kit, he has the time, takes out Dupree, wins the round, and gives Faze the lead going into the second half of overtime. Excellent stuff. Unfortunately, Faze just collapsed after this and got cleanly swept on the second overtime. Their T-side just couldn't get anything going, and Falcons just cleaned them up. Job done. Just straight to the next game. It was so weird because the game was so close up to that point, and then Faze just couldn't make anything happen. The picks weren't going their way, they couldn't close the round, and Falcons just dominated that CT side to close out. Which, fair play to the Falcons, because taking a 1v4 clutch to the dome like that, at that point in the game, that would have broken many teams, and I expected them to collapse thereafter, but no, they lock it in and take that crucial map point back, forcing us to a Dust 2 decider. And this Dust 2 game was pretty weird because we literally had a dead even first half, 6-6, both of these teams trading back and forth, very interesting stuff. Faze looking pretty good on the T side, Falcons winning a lot of post-plan situations to keep them in the game, so it looked like things were going to be pretty close. This game was going to come down to the wire. And then we swap sides. And Faze win the next 7 straight rounds, and the game in the series is over. Very weird when that stuff happens. It's not even like things were like super remarkable. Like looking back at the footage, it was just we got to these second half rounds and the Falcons were just losing. Like here on round 15, we open it up. Falcons are going to try and play into the mid control. Froze is going to get a pick in lower tunnels. Brokey's going to get a pick top mid with the op. Rain's going to get a pick at Cat. Okay, we're into a 5v2. And like Magisk and Madden, they navigate that 5v2 pretty well. They get the first pick back on Brokey top mid. They rotate around to long A. They slowly creep up. Madden gets a nice shot with the Galil. All right, we're in a 3v2. This is kind of winnable. But then Madden gets traded out by Kerrigan on site, and Magisk is left in a 1v2. He just not able to win. These are always the hardest outcomes for me to analyze and then present to you guys, because at the end of the day, it's not like anything super remarkable happened. There weren't like huge 3Ks, huge clutches, aces, insane shots. No, the Falcons, they lost. They got picked apart. Faze won their 1v1s. They didn't concede map control. It was very standard Counter-Strike, and then it just boiled down to one team winning and one team losing. It was a lot like that G2 Faze series from yesterday. There was nothing insane happening a lot of the time. It was just one team winning rounds. And that's always the hardest for me to convey to you guys, because what else do I say? They won. GG. Speaking of they won GG, that's pretty much sums up my thoughts for NAVI taking on G2, because both of these games did not feel particularly close down the stretch. It was 13-9 on both maps, and honestly, we're just getting to the point where it's very clear that G2 and NAVI are just in different classes. They both are very competitive teams and in their own right are contending for championships, but NAVI are so clear and above them in terms of tactical depth, and they're not so far behind in firepower that it feels like this matchup is just overwhelming. G2 need people to pop off and have insane performances to beat NAVI. They need Nico to be electric. They need Muncie to be transcendent. They need Mouths to click every single head. They need Hunter to be involved. Because as soon as they hit the wall, it's clear they don't have a plan B. There is no tactical depth to this lineup. If they're not winning off of firepower, they're not winning. On Dust 2 to start, G2 were on a heater. Muncie was going crazy. They went up 8-1 to start the first half. And then NAVI turned around and won 10 straight rounds before G2 could get another round on the board to make it 9 total for the map. NAVI just clean and reverse swept them out of the server as soon as they got a handle on things, and especially on their T side, they tore G2 apart. Wonderful, especially, was going ridiculous with the op in his hands, matching Muncie beat for beat, blow for blow, 18 op kills during regular play. He had 25 total for the map. 18 of his kills with the op in his hand. Insane impact. And I feel like we saw a very similar story on Ancient, just this time a little bit in reverse. NAVI dominated to open the starting half here, going 9-3 in the first half, winning 7 straight before G2 could possibly stem the bleeding. And even then, G2 just looked out of it on the second map. It was only on the second half when Nico got an insane 4K on a save round that they were able to string together some momentum and win some rounds back. And they looked good for that stretch of rounds because they were dominating, taking picks, and destroying the NAVI defense. But as soon as that stops, as soon as the fragging production just drops a little bit, NAVI strike back and they're back in control, winning this series. At least in this specific matchup, I do not see how G2 beats NAVI if NAVI do not underperform expectations. G2 can still win tournaments. I think they can beat every other team in the world depending on the day. But this specific matchup is a nightmare for them, and we saw that play out exactly today. Moving on, let's talk about Astralis taking on Spirit. Now listen, going into this, I was ready to run it back, play the pain theme one more time, show you KD getting killed 11 times throughout the series, because I thought for sure there was no way in hell Astralis could even think about touching Spirit. They weren't even going to be able to take a single map. I was sure of it. And you know, that's why I wasn't even really paying attention to the stream at that time. I was listening to it in the background. I was working on other stuff at the time. And then I look over just to kind of check in because I'm wondering what the hell I'm listening to. And then I see Astralis are winning on Ancient 13-3. And Spirit are now down in the series going on to Dust 2. And I was like, oh no. Do you guys understand the turmoil I was feeling throughout the rest of this series, clenching every part of my body, hoping that Spirit do not find a way to choke to this terrible, awful Astralis lineup? Because if I had to sit down here, speak to you lovely people, and talk about how Astralis did the impossible and beat Spirit in a best-of-3 series, it would be a miserable experience for me. I was huffing military grade, industrial strength, copium, straight to the dome, hoping and praying to every god that would listen that Astralis would find a way to mess this up. And thankfully, my prayers were answered. Spirit dominated on Dust 2, and even though Mirage was close, Spirit did what they needed to do. They clutched up, and thankfully, I will not have to face Astralis fans in the comments for now. Now listen, we all believe in fairness and equal treatment on this channel. I'm not above giving criticism to things I dislike. Astralis played good on Ancient. They played good on Mirage. I can't really deny that. They did a very good job on their T set on Ancient specifically of taking the teeth out of Donk and not allowing him to control mid. They shut down Donk routinely, they held him to 3 first half kills, and that allowed them to run up that huge 9-3 lead going into the half. And then they clean swept it with the pistol round on the second half. They played very well. Spirit played awful. There's no real getting around that. This is just another weird Spirit game where Shiro and Donk both decided to have bad impact at the same time, so Spirit had no juice, they had no sauce, and that's why they lost. Which, okay, fair enough. At least Spirit woke up between maps and sweet chin music Astralis on Dust 2. I mean, Donk went out there and slaughtered these guys on Dust 2. They ran their own 8-4 half on T side, where they looked very good, very efficient in taking map control. They owned Long, they owned Cat, Shiro right behind Donk with great impact. Even Zontix was having a good T side, which is just a great sign for all of his recent struggles. He was still very good on the TC side as always, and Astralis just had nothing to counter with. Only one player on Astralis managed to get into double-digit kills, and that was Yabby. Device, Stown, nowhere to be found. I don't know why I keep accidentally rhyming things. I'm not trying to, it's just happening. Speaking of happening, we're going to Mirage. And thank you, Spirit, for making me sweat this game out. There were some unforgivable losses by Spirit on this map. The first one that sticks out, round 6, they're facing anti-eco where Astralis have brought 2 ops in from the previous round, and granted, they're in the right hands, they're in Device and Cadian's hands, so Astralis could make this work, but it's just 2 ops and a bunch of pistols. Spirit should never be threatening to lose this round, but for whatever reason, the play here is just to go mid, go to outside A, and then waste the entire round doing nothing. They do nothing with the mid control. They're never watching B at all. They're just waiting outside A until 30 seconds left. Like this is like 2015 Flipside Gaming where we're waiting until 10 seconds left to execute on a bomb site. Like what the fuck are we doing? And because nobody is lurking towards B, Yabby gets an incredible flank off, he gets to shoot someone in the back for free, and then the pistols go to work. The round falls apart. Somehow Spirit just throw this round away on this weird slow-ass call from Chopper. Just a lot of sloppy rounds, and even when they were winning, things were just feeling a bit too close, especially during the end of that first half, like here on round 11, where despite them working very effective mid control, and shout out to Zontix for this great shot on device in mid, really nice stuff to keep an eye out for the boost here, they take the B side, it's a 3v3 situation, but things just get a little too dicey. They allow Stayer to maneuver up catwalk, get a bunch of kills. Stayer cleans up all 4 remaining kills, nearly wins the round if it wasn't for the timer, and it's just like, yeah, you guys win the round, but Spirit weren't winning rounds very cleanly. And on the second half, Spirit were just having so much trouble stopping the Astralis attack, and it got so bad that Astralis were this close to securing series point, if not for the man, the myth, the legend, Donk, realizing that no, I am the best player in this series. Like on round 22, where him and Zontix made for this great pairing, where Donk is playing around the connector, he gets a pick, he falls back, Zontix uses that information to poke out a catwalk to get a pick for himself. When these two are working together, their Mirage interplay is just so fun to watch, and it's just nice to see Zontix tap it back in and just look so much better as a whole today compared to yesterday. Thankfully, Spirit assuage my fears, they hold on, they win the map. Astralis, you're eliminated. I wish all Astralis players a very nice day, and I hope you feel better, Device. Thank you. Is the video done yet? No? Got one more series to talk about? Okay. Listen, will you guys forgive me this one time if we just do a lightning round here? If we just kind of skimmed through this Vitality Liquid series? Because ultimately, this wasn't an elimination game. They were just playing for seeding. And while yes, both of these games were very close, Liquid looked like they could have potentially taken Vitality on both of these maps, but on Anubis, they ran to the brick wall of ZywOo, especially down the stretch of the second half and overtime. ZywOo was electric, he neutralized Ultimate, and even when Liquid managed to make their own little comeback where Ultimate was getting these very cheeky boost peaks off, it didn't matter, and Vitality clean swept that overtime to go up 1-0. And on Nuke, we saw another classic Nuke performance where Liquid dominated their CT side 9-3. Then when we swapped sides, Vitality handed it right back to them, going for the reverse sweep 10-2 to win the game 13-11. And honestly, the difference maker for Vitality on Nuke down the stretch wasn't ZywOo, wasn't Speaks, wasn't Flames, it was Apex. Apex is one of the most interesting players in World Counter-Strike because out of all this like old guard, older IGL group of players, he's probably the one left who is just liable at any point to turn it on and roll back the years. He is one of those older IGLs who was definitely game to take over a server occasionally, and this was one of those halves where he was locked in, super aggressive with the M4, and he just couldn't miss a shot, and Vitality needed it. For Liquid, they made Vitality sweat. I think that's a very good sign for this lineup. Ultimate, this was the first series I saw him really struggle in. He was not able to play to his usual aggression the way he wanted it to, and honestly, that's going to happen when you play in an off matchup against ZywOo. ZywOo is built to punish mistakes like that, and Ultimate, he got a little too frisky, got a little too close to the sun, and he got burnt this time. Again, apologies for skimming the series. If you watched all the way to the end, I appreciate you. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm. These videos are powered by Advanced.gg. Check the link in the description. Browse their website, choose any of their excellent products, and if you decide to make a purchase, you can use my code LIONS10 at checkout for 10% off. Thank you to Advanced.gg. I also work with Refrag. Refrag, I think, is the best service available to getting better at CS2. If you want to check it out, get a subscription and try it for yourself. Use my code LION15 for 15% off. Thank you to Refrag. Shout out to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor, and Milan Berta. Check the description if you want to become a channel member. It helps out immensely. And then finally, check me out on Twitch. I'll be live later tonight. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.